I'll talk about the extraction of fossil fuels which goes on in large scale in India, but not about all the projects. There are three fossil fuel extraction project areas in India where the potential carbon emission goes beyond 1 gigaton, where I've been working closely with the communities and the struggles, but I'll focus on one to highlight how these extraction projects are not only adding to the carbon emission globally and for India's budget and the global carbon budget, but also how it is damaging the local communities, because many international groups, even NGOs, civil society, have the sort of way of saying that the global south needs more carbon budget without realizing that every ton of the carbon budget actually harms the communities that live in those on the ground. So start by showing one of the protected areas. This is in India there are 3 levels of protection: national parks, reserve forest and protected forest. Part of this is a reserve forest, part of this is a protected forest, and as you can see, this is a very rich forest. This is called Hasdeo Arand. It's in the eastern state of Chhattisgarh. And in India, majority of the coal is concentrated in 7 eastern states. Majority of coal reserves in India. So this is one of those states called Chhattisgarh. Northern Chhattisgarh has this Hasdeo Arand forest. This is something like almost 1800 plus square kilometer. And if you look at this forest area and one part where the mining has started, this has become like this. So you can understand what was the biodiversity, what were the forest communities living there. In this forest, I'll come to that, roughly 70% of the income of the local communities used to come from the forest resources. And in India, during an earlier regime, some 15, 16 years ago, there was a very progressive legislation, in short, which is called the Forest Rights Act, which gave the forest dwelling communities both community and individual rights over the forest land they have been living in for 3 generations or more. But all this destruction is going on by negating those rights, by violating the laws that the parliament has passed and notified. If you look at this and then what the forest actually contains in terms of biodiversity, like we are talking about protected forest, it's not just trees. There are hundreds and hundreds of species, 82 species of birds, 167 varieties of vegetation, and there are many others which is not listed here. And surprisingly, or may not be surprisingly, the Indian government institution, Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education, has notified that this is the largest unfragmented forest in central India. Many of the forests have been fragmented, so the elephants and tigers and the large animals, they cannot really live there comfortably. But this is one of the largest. This is the largest unfragmented stretch. And here already the mining permissions have been given. As I have shown, mining has started. And this is the kind of one block of this, out of the 23 blocks that it has been divided into, just one block where mining has started. And the second phase, roughly 250,000 trees will be felled. That's the government estimate. The local estimate is even more. And as I said, this is not just a question of trees or animals, which are extremely important, but the local communities. 10,000 was 10,000 population was based on our earlier census in 2011. Now the population is higher, and they are completely dependent on these forest resources. The total coal reserve, there are 2 kinds of, and I'm showing this on the left-hand side, on the far side, you can see how good the forest was. On the right-hand side, you can see what it is becoming after the mining started. And again, one of the most infamous companies in India is very much involved in this forest. We are not allowed to speak about the companies and the nations, so we are just saying, many of you must be knowing about it. This particular coal blocks, the total proven coal reserve is 1.37 billion tons. That means if it is entirely mined, the estimated carbon dioxide emission will be 2.8 billion tons, gigatons. So that's far above 1 gigaton mark. Surprisingly, this is not in Alice's map, but this must come into the maps. So these are the kind of potential. And here, the good point is the local communities, what we call Adivashis or indigenous people or tribal people, they are fighting against this mining. They are fighting to save the forest, save the biodiversity, and save their own lives and livelihoods. And this struggle is very strong on the ground. Every march has been participated with thousands of local people, supported by groups like us. And this is going on not only in the forest area, but this is also going on in the cities, in the capitals. And one very good point is this protest in the local area is led largely by two, if you call tribals, that is the indigenous people, Adivashis, and women, Adivasi women. In fact, women has taken the lead in most of these resistance struggles. And if you talk here about the abstract concepts of in the global stocktake, how much is the carbon budget, 330 gigatons is left, how much to give to each country, these are all abstract concepts without any something to hold on, intangible. And these are the people who are actually working to save the Paris Agreement goals, not the negotiators here. These are the people who are trying to actually save all biodiversity, trying to save the earth from going into the sixth mass extinction, which may be too late, I don't know. So these, without supporting these struggles on the ground, empty words here, without really putting tangible figures and facts on their hands, that's why very little progress goes on. And as I was saying, this Hasdeo Arand coal blocks, these have a potential of over 2 gigatons of coal. I'll briefly talk about the other mega project, which is another carbon bomb that I am involved with for the last 12 years. That's in Singrauli. I am not showing this, I'm not focusing on this, but Singrauli is another major area where already 24 coal mines are operating and many others, and it's an entirely highly forested block in the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh, where 24 coal mines are operating, 21 gigawatt of coal power plant are operating. And if you go there, if you work with these people, every fourth household of the villages suffers from some kind of ailment or the other, either a kidney failure or a eye problem or mercury pollution and neurological problems. And these are the kind of impact that on the ground people have. Again, those who talk about carbon space for developing countries probably don't realize what people are paying, what price people are paying in the same developing countries because of this getting more carbon space, not development space, carbon space. If we really want that whatever goes on here in these negotiations, whatever, if we all really want to have any possibility, any realistic possibility to save the world from a climate catastrophe, going beyond 2 degrees Celsius by the end of this, forget about 1.5 degrees Celsius, we'll in any case cross that. In the early next decade, we'll in any case cross 1.5. All science shows to that. If we really want to keep well below 2 degrees Celsius, the only way we can do that is by strengthening, supporting, and standing in solidarity with all these struggles, so that despite the governments and corporate nexus to really destroy our world, we can save it. Thank you very much.